Here's a quick look into today's episode.
What it did was it took the cadre on that team, when we put that student first mindset, to another level of professionalism, another level of preparation, another level of being able to execute as instructors. When you want to present a very professional product, who are you doing this for? Is it students? Is it for the guys, for your Jims and Joes? If you really, truly, all of those other little implied tasks will start to become very obvious of what it is that you need to do, and you'll build systems and processes. I think what's on my mind is understanding that a very impactful chapter of my career is come to a close, right? Wanting to bring that same level of impact and energy to, what comes next. The student first mentality. That was the guiding star for everything else. It simplified everything down to student first. What does that really mean, right? Okay, well, if we're going to put our students first, then we need to make sure that the product we're presenting is top-notch, right? And I wanted to win more than anything else. I wanted to show that I could turn it around for me and everything else, and go contribute to a team, not just a team, but the team, right? America's team. Almost every single day, it was kind of, I had to chop it into such small parts, right? I had to think about let's survive to breakfast. Let's survive to lunch. Let's survive to dinner. Is the ability to, as a jump master, the ability to instill confidence in those young jumpers, like the ability to do your job right, be precise about it, and take that kid that may be literally pissing down his leg, scared about getting out of this bird, and make them feel like it's okay. The equipment will be trusted. The professionalism of the team is there. We've turned every stone, right? And we are going to put you out of that bird with the highest level of reasonable safety that we can provide for you, and you're going to have a great jump, right? So I think that's what it was for the first couple of years in the Ranger Regiment, just being reminded every single day that this is a place where killers go. Everybody in this room just about is a hitter. If you're not going to be in this room very long. It is a very hard place to be. It's in an even harder place to stay for any kind of considerable amount of time. So you have to be about your business. You have to be about your craft, and it is not a forgiving place in terms of not bringing it every single day to compete. It's all about compete. And what are you bringing to the team? Not yesterday, but right now and tomorrow. Just be a great teammate, because that's really, honestly, the only thing anybody ever remembers about you anyway. There are guys that, you might remember oh yeah, that dude was a physical stud, right? But you don't remember the real specifics. You don't remember what he scored on every test. You don't remember everything he crushed, right? But you will remember how he treated everybody. You will remember whether or not he was a guy who could be reliable and counted upon. What people remembered was how they made him feel when they were in that team environment. That's what I would like to be remembered as more than anything else, is just a great teammate. Somebody that you could rely upon to be there, to do their part of the job, regardless of being the smartest or quickest or fastest or biggest or strongest or most talented in the room. Certainly not. But somebody that's just willing to do the dirty work, get the hard yards, when the team needs me to, and bring good energy there too, right? Great morale. Somebody that's going to be somebody that when you see him make the manifest, you go, oh, good. I'm glad he's coming. One of those. So that's what I would like to be remembered as more than anything else.
Welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Fish, where our purpose is to help leaders better understand what drives people. In today's world, the core of recruiting and retaining talent revolves around leadership, and not just average leadership, but motivated, values-based, inspirational leadership. Our purpose is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories and stacking habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people.
Hello.
Yo, Mike, how are you?
There we go.
Yes, looking good.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Sorry. Obviously it's crazy around here. We're physically moving tomorrow. A lot of cleaning, a lot of nuts stuff going on. And so I had to come and actually sit in the car here to get away from the rest of the noise. So luckily cars make pretty good little sound studios. So
Yeah, it definitely does. And I appreciate you doing this today. Ever since we started talking, we started chatting back and forth about what would we talk about, what topics. I started looking into, some of the things that you've been putting out there, some of the things that you've been sharing. I reached out to a lot of the people that know you or that have interacted with you. And what I found over the last couple of days as I started putting together the roadmap was the hardest part was going to be is how do I focus a conversation, about with so many things that I'd love to hear from you, and so many things that people told me that they'd love to hear from you. So I think that was the hardest part was, I watched some of the videos and the things that you talked about, I loved, and I wanted to ask a few more questions about.
yes, sir. Yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
One of the things I wanted to do was I'll run you through what I was thinking real quick. And for the true believers, those are the people that actually listen past 45 minutes or an hour, so I'm giving them a little shout out to the true believers that are out there, because those are the people that have been, hitting me up, giving me topics, giving me questions. They know people that are coming up to be on other episodes, and they're like, hey, ask them about this, talk to them about that, so, and some of those people I talked to yesterday, and some of them I ran into your old company commander, Major Rose. I ran into him at the change of command, and I told him we were doing this today, and he gave me a couple things, so he's ask him about this. And so first, your reputation precedes you, so I'm looking forward to the conversation. What I want to start off with and is going to be who are you, and what is it you want people to think about when they hear your name. Then we'll jump into a little bit of what's on your mind right now, the most important things that are kind of on your mind. That way we can jump right into it there. Why'd you join the Army? Why the Rangers? Talk about ROTC. I want to hear about pre-Ranger and how that was potentially a precursor to what you did with ROTC and Texas. A lot of people want to hear about Texas A&M and how you did there from a training and a culture perspective. What was that all about, right? Well, I definitely want to get into the officer side stuff where you talked about NCOs building good officers into what they become, right? And being a part of that, and not just talking about how they, maybe don't know what's going on, right?
Right.
Those are kind of the formidable years. Then I want to get into a little bit of your thoughts on how social media has helped people, and with the podcasts and putting things out in videos, and ways to share what you've learned throughout the Army exponentially, what you're doing next and where you're going to, and what you're really fired up about, what you're getting ready to get yourself into at RTB. And then we'll wrap it up with some of your thoughts on leadership development, because I'm going to do another episode here in a couple hours with Sam Deal, and we're going to talk about leadership development, and he's going to give me his perspective. He's at the War College right now, but I want the NCO perspective, of leadership development, and how do you develop NCOs and develop officers. And then we'll wrap it up right about there with what's the most impactful thing that's kind of going through your mind right now. What do you think about that kind of as a roadmap?
I'm excited. We'll get into it. And
so what I want to start off with though is who are you, when you say this is who I am, and what is it that you want people to kind of feel when they hear your name?
To be honest with you, sir, I don't think I've ever actually been asked that question. If I was to say anything, something that I've given as a piece of professional advice to other people before, is when I tell them how should people think about you when they talk about you, when you're done with your service, when you've moved on. I tell them at the end of the day, just be a great teammate, because that's really, honestly, the only thing anybody ever remembers about you anyway. There are guys that, you might remember oh yeah, that dude was a physical stud, right? But you don't remember the real specifics. You don't remember what he scored on every test. You don't remember like everything he crushed, right? But you will remember how he treated everybody. You will remember whether or not he was a guy who could be reliable and counted upon, regardless of, maybe his individual talents or skills, right? I've met plenty of people in this profession that were very smart. They were very talented for the profession, but had no people skills. They were not somebody that I enjoyed working with. And I would say that's the exception rather than the norm, because I've been in some really great places and worked with great people. But, the people that, no matter how talented, no matter what that evaluation said, no matter how quickly they fast tracked, no matter, what awards and accolades they accrued, what people remembered was how they made them feel when they were in that team environment. Was that a person that they felt like that was for the boys or not?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would like to be remembered as more than anything else, is just a great teammate. Somebody that, you could rely upon to be there, to do their part of the job, regardless of being the smartest or quickest or fastest or biggest or strongest or most talented in the room. Certainly not. But somebody that's just willing to do like the dirty work, get the hard yards, when the team needs me to, and bring good energy there too, right? Like, great morale. Somebody that's going to be somebody that when you see him make the manifest, you go, oh, good. I'm glad he's coming. Like one of those. So like that's what I would like to be remembered as more than anything else.
Yeah. I love how you use the term, he made the manifest. I haven't heard that in a minute. And like, there's 45 people can go tonight who makes the manifest, and you want to be somebody that's the last person that we would cut, would be this person. And I think
maybe for weight. I don't know, going over some of those mountains. I wound up on the cut list for weight a couple of times, carrying all the machine gun and everything else, flying a high AGL. But that might have been the only reason. So,
you counted as two people.
But yeah,
you and Big Al counted for like two people that was out there. Okay, what's on your mind right now? Like, what's got you the most fired up? I know you're going through a move right now, but like those are stressful times. So like it blocks all the kind of the nonsense out, and you're able to kind of focus on what's most important, right? What's on your mind right now?
I think what's on my mind is, understanding that a very impactful chapter of my career is coming to an end, coming to a close, has come to a close, right? And wanting to bring that same level of impact and energy to, what comes next is kind of what's on my mind. I don't want to go in there and be substandard or, not what they were expecting. I want to be in a position where I can essentially transition seamlessly from what we were able to do here in College Station at Texas A&M over the last several years, and that standard of training and that standard of professionalism we were able to cultivate here. And I want to be able to take that culture, embody it, and bring it to the next team and go make, that team percentages better as well. Like ARTB is a great place. It's very high standard already. It's, Ranger School and all the other, big schools there, like Airborne, Air Assault, Pathfinder, all those things like that, right? So they already have a high standard. I want to come in and not just make the team, but make the team better if we can.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Sergeant Major Hartung was one of my platoon sergeants, and I can't think of a better group of people that you're getting ready to surround yourself by. Major Osborne was the deputy commander. He's coming out here to JPMRC to be a part of our unit. John Davis is out there.
Major May.
Big Major May's out there right now. So
he was actually a huge reason why I'm heading over there right now. He's a big proponent of that. So shout out Major May. Appreciate you.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that know you're coming that are heading that way. Like my son's in Merrill's platoon right now. He just got there a couple months ago.
Nice.
And so there's a lot of people that are out there that are looking forward to, having you be one of their teammates.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and with the reputation preceding, right, I want to make sure that we're not falling flat here. So it's definitely a concern, when you're packing and everything else becomes your singular concern. You're like, oh man, and I'm growing out the scruff, you start getting I think the kids call it the scaries, right? Where you're like, I got to report to this new unit, and then we got to in process. I got to make sure that we're upholding the standard, every other thing, right? But, that happens in everybody's Army career. When one door closes, the next begins to open. There's that transition period. So I'm just looking forward to getting through this as smoothly as possible, and then getting boots on the ground, there at ARTB.
I think what you just said, you said the scaries, and for those of us that have PCSed or transitioned, we know what that means. And I think I've heard this several times throughout my career, where it's like the moment you don't get that feeling, it's the time to be done, right? The time that you were like, hey, I got a PT test today. And you're like, why are you nervous? You've taken how many PT tests? The day that you're not a little bit nervous right before a PT test, you should probably... you don't have the same fire. Or the moment you're not a little bit nervous right before the green light turns on, I think at that moment you're probably like, all you're thinking about is muscle memory. But like, if you're not a little bit nervous about doing that kind of stuff, like, it's probably you're probably not as focused, you're probably not as driven as you used to be, right?
I would say so. I mean, that's been another thing that's been on my mind. Like, am I really going to exit an aircraft again? I'm like, God, I am. It's been like 5 years since I jumped out of a plane. It's been a long time. And so I'm like, man, I'm going back to doing all that stuff, right? And so, I didn't think I was going to. And then, the opportunity to come back to Benning and go do the job at ARTB, when it came up, it was really too good to pass.
Yeah.
With the relationships we've had with people there and family going back home and all that. So it was one of those situations where I was like, wow, you're going to go back and do some of those things you kind of swore off, you're like, because for me, a lot of people, first off, there's two kinds of people when it comes to jumping. When they say they like jumping, you're either a psychopath or you're lying, one of the two. And so, for me, I'm like, I'll be transparent with you. I've never liked jumping. I'm the last one out, first one down guy. I come in like a meteor, I'm like breaking sound barriers when I hit the ground. It's one of those things that, it's not always the funnest thing for me. However, what I do enjoy about it is the ability to, as a jump master, the ability to instill confidence in those young jumpers, like the ability to do your job right, be precise about it, and take that kid that may be literally pissing down his leg, scared about getting out of this bird, and make them feel like it's okay. Like, the equipment will be trusted. The professionalism of the team is there. We've turned every stone, right? And we are going to put you out of that bird with the highest level of reasonable safety that we can provide for you. And you're going to have a great jump, right?
Yeah.
And so that was something that was done for me as a young private in Ranger Regiment. When you're in Ranger Regiment, you're like lower than, the lowest like insect on a piece of shit, right? So like, you're not used to people. When you first get there, right, you're not used to people kind of taking the time to reassure you about something, right? It's like, hey, perform now. That's all I care about, right?
Yeah.
But jump day was the exception to that, right? You saw all these guys that were like just hard cases. All of a sudden, they're like, hey, brother, it'll be all right. Trust your equipment. You're going to be okay. Have a great jump. Tap you on the helmet, and you're like, I kind of respected that, like, ability to flip the switch between, hey, we're in garrison. Why don't you do some push-ups? Not reading your Ranger handbook. Why don't you run around the company? Do, whatever it was, right? Like getting on you, like, hey, you better be sprinting off this bus. When I call for one, I need all 15 of you running over here. To really giving you that time to inspect your equipment as if they were putting, themselves out of the bird. It's as if they were putting one of their kids out of the bird. I thought that it was a really unique leadership experience when you're going to do something altogether that is very high risk. And there are guys with expertise in the formation, and there are guys without it. And those guys with that expertise protect the ones without it. And I think that's really kind of cool, a cool aspect of jumping.
Yeah, and I think when I was growing up in the Rangers, they brought the same to like live fires, to where everything just got a little bit different once it was time to go to the live fires and go to the shoot house and get ready to do, platoon live fires, and the breach was going to actually go off, and you had live rounds in every way, shape, or form. It was a lot more coaching, and it was a lot more. I'm going to help you get it right, because also your ability to do well is my reputation, right? My reputation is the ability to get 3 to 5 Rangers, to do the right thing, or a squad of them, or a platoon of them, or a whole company of them, right? And so
Right.
it's especially as a leader, it's so less to do with you, and so much more to do with your ability to get everybody around you on the same sheet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, live fires, TCCC training, things like that, the things that matter really when it comes down to it, or those high risk things, that's where you really see that leadership laboratory kind of express itself. And that's something that I've always appreciated about the military in general, but certainly service in the regiment. And that is not something that you find in a lot of places, if anywhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. You've mentioned a couple times like the Ranger Regiment, and I know what the story is because I did my research. I looked up, I watched some of the videos, I listened to you tell the stories. But give our folks a quick reminder why you joined the Army, and I know the answer, but I want to hear from you. Like why
Yeah.
you joined the Army, and then why the Rangers?
Yep. So, just for some context, joining the Army was something that probably was always going to happen. I come from a long line of service. My great grandfather served in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. So lifelong guy. And then, his son, my grandfather, he served a couple of tours in Vietnam. My dad served in the Navy. He was, he was cool. He was whatever. He did a few years in the Navy in the 80s. My mother just put in 40 years of service and was actually very fortunate to be at her retirement ceremony and being able to say some nice things about her.
That's
All true,
awesome.
of course. Yeah. So, it was something that was probably always going to happen, but, I had other plans, obviously. I was going to be the one to buck the trend. I got tired of mom hanging on me about, when are you going to enlist? When are you just going to accept it? Kind of deal, right? When are you going to join the Army? And she's kind of waiting in the wings there, waiting for that to happen. But I was big into athletics. I was big into playing football and very competitive in that, and weightlifting as well. And so, I did that all through high school. I pursued a walk-on position in college down at Florida International University. Did football good, did class bad, so that didn't really work out for me. It turns out that I wasn't armed with great study habits or time management or discipline in general. That was off that 53 and a half by 120. I had plenty of discipline there. I had plenty of discipline in the weight room. I just had no discipline anywhere else. So it didn't pan out for me. And after, struggling for a few years there, fighting upstream, trying to ice skate uphill, as they say sometimes, right? I was just losing. I was just losing, right? And
Yeah.
I fully understand that, for me, from a faith-based perspective, is sometimes God's trying to tell you something in the plans that are not working out for you. This wasn't the purpose. This wasn't the direction for you. This wasn't where you were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so after stacking loss after loss, bad situations turning worse, getting to the point where, I was literally living by the good graces of some people around me that were kind enough to allow me to stay on their couch, eat their food, because I essentially was going nowhere fast trying to pursue this, being a student, working odd jobs and trying to get back into college football. It just was not working for me, right?
Yeah.
So I went back home and I enlisted the Army because we, obviously it's still at war. I was tired of being useless, feeling useless, seeing young men go do, something that I always admired and found incredibly courageous in that, right? And I'm like, well, I have all these physical gifts. I have all these physical traits. Why not join a team where we can win and I can bring those talents to the table, right? And I wanted to win more than anything else. I wanted to show that I could turn it around for me and, everything else, and go contribute to a team, not just a team, but the team, right? America's team. And then, if you're going to join America's team, you might as well go try to be with the best. So I knew that Ranger this, Ranger that. I didn't know really anything about the 75th, but I knew that Ranger, was like prestigious, right? And I knew that I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll try to go towards anything that says Ranger, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, there's no Ranger contracts offered, right? None whatsoever when I'm coming in. This is like peak. I think it was Obama administration, maybe second year, something like that. There was not a lot of bonuses to be had. Contracts were a little tough to snag for special operations at that time, just uniquely to when I came in. And, my mother, her being career military, was very much, hey, you're going to earn everything you get then, we're not going to wait around. You're kind of getting like bad groceries being in this house, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to wait around for X amount of months for this to do. If you're good enough, you will earn it. There are opportunities to earn it in the Army. There are opportunities to volunteer. And if you're good enough, you can, you'll be where you're supposed to be, right? And something that I've taken from my mother, and will sound very familiar to anybody that's, worked with me, or especially over here at A&M or been in any of the schoolhouses that, I was fortunate enough to instruct in, is I tell them, hey, do your very best and you will be where you're supposed to be, right? And so my mother told me that years and years ago. And it's actually really funny because she wouldn't let me go to MEPS until I had passed an APFT to at least the 60% standard. Which is funny because when I ran my first 2 mile, mind you, remember I said I was a weightlifter and a football player, right? So we're used to all out effort for 6 to 8 seconds. And then there's a break for about, 20, 30 seconds. And then you're doing it again. It's a completely different level of fitness. It's a completely different level of conditioning, very fast twitch, very type 2 fibers. Like that's who I am at my core, right? I was probably supposed to play football. But I get out there and I'm like 2 miles, whatever, like how fast do I need to do this in? Oh, I'll smoke that, right? So I start running. We did the push-ups, we did the sit-ups. I got at least the 60% standard on that, right? So then we get out in the road and, it's about 2 p.m. in Florida in like August, right? My mom wanted to give me this to like the heat of the day, right? She's like, well, if it's so easy, we'll do it like during the heat. I'm like, fine, bet, we'll do this. I'm okay with it, whatever. Yeah. So I start running along and I'm running like an idiot. I have like no motion economy. I'm so inefficient. The most inefficient thing you ever seen. The energy tax is through the roof. And I run the first mile in like 7:50. And I am so dead. I am in like so much danger right now. I'm like just the deepest of water. And my mom is driving along next to me, in her car, and she's got the stopwatch and she's like, that's pretty good. Do that for one more. You'll be okay, maybe. And I'm like, I can't even respond to her. I'm like, ugh. So I finished this thing at like 18:40. And I'm like, oh my God, and it made me question everything, man. It made me question whether or not I was even going to be a good candidate for the Army, right? But my mom, to her credit, was like, okay, well, now that you know where you're at, and now you understand like why I don't want you to go to MEPS until you can at least do these things like to the baseline physical level. Now we can work on this. Let me show you what it looks like when NCOs train their troops. And to my mother's credit, almost every day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, almost a month actually, we went out and we ran together. And she showed me how to clean up the form a little bit, and then gave me another test like to the Army standard 30 days later, and I did much better on that one, like far above the standard needed. She goes, okay, all right, we can do this thing now. I feel good about sending you on. So that lesson right there showed me right off the bat that Could she have just sent me to MEPS and, kicked the can down the road and been like, the Army will sort it out for him? Absolutely, she could have. Absolutely, she could have. But she demonstrated for me right there what elite NCOs do. And that is to take charge and take ownership of something that they know isn't right. And they begin that mentoring process and they begin that process of fixing those problems that are within their power right away, regardless. And that's what she did. That's what she modeled for me, that I understand now as a senior NCO that I didn't quite grasp then. I knew it was like, oh, cool, mom's helping me out. But now I have such a high appreciation for that now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you go off to basic and, like now you're in basic and you find your way towards the Ranger Regiment. What was kind of those first couple of years? Like what do you remember the most about the most impactful things for those first couple of years?
Man, the most impactful thing for those first couple of years that I remember is every single day just being reminded how much you have to work on, just how not good you are, right? So you go through this process. When I went to basic training, I excelled. Basic training was not hard. I snagged a option 40 contract from a kid that didn't want it anymore. He wasn't going to make it anyway, right? So he gave it to me. We swapped. And so then I go to jump school. Again, easy peasy. It's not hard at all, right? My first hard day in the Army was when the Ranger Regiment showed up and grabbed us for RASP. That for me was my first, like, oh, hello. Okay, this is different. It's not TRADOC. This is very different what these guys are able to do. And the feel of it, right? It was much.
Were you
much
20
more
or were you 20, 21? How old were you when you started RASP?
I was 20. I turned 21 in RASP.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's important because there's a big difference between an 18, 19-year-old who gets picked up by the black Ford Ranger pickup truck and a 21 or even a 20, 21-year-old, somebody that, like you, that had been to college for a year or two. I think there's a big difference with the people in their mindset about what they're capable of.
For sure, yeah. And so, I mean, for me, almost every single day, it was kind of, I had to chop it into such small parts, right? I had to think about, like, let's survive to breakfast. Let's survive to lunch. Let's survive to dinner, because, I was in RASP hold for 5 weeks, and that was no picnic. Before going to RASP, it was pretty ugly, right? You're essentially, just on lockdown the entire time, doing details, doing crushing PT. Every Friday was an RFT. And so if you didn't pass it, they would just cut you on that Friday. Even if you were there for a couple of weeks, you miss one in a row and you're done, right? So they had the kind of the luxury of doing that. Then that's how they went about it. So after getting through RASP, I wound up being the RASP honor grad and going on to the communications course right after, because I had a high enough GT score, which was hilarious because they were like, this rock eater, there's absolutely no way this guy has a GT score to go to the communication course after I wound up going to. So I'm feeling really great about myself, right? I'm like, oh, I'm top of my class. I was picked for this communication course. Like, I must be the shit. And I was, but like, the shit that's on the bottom of your boot, that's what I really was. Because when I wound up down at Charlie Company 375, they reminded me of that really quickly. And it was like, oh my God, I thought I was so trained. I thought I was so smart. You went through 8 weeks of RASP. The second 4 weeks, they're teaching you how to be a Ranger. No, they're just introducing you to the most they're giving you a pulse, essentially, compared to the level of expertise, the level of skill that is in everybody that's already in that formation. And it doesn't even matter if there's a senior private that's, let's say, only about 5 or 6 months ahead of you. By being in that environment with those guys 5-6 months before you, he's at a level of fitness and competency that you're like, whoa, dude, like, oh my God, he's so intelligent. They're so fit. They're so competent. The only thing they're missing right now is a Ranger tab, and they're getting them ready to go to school, and so I think that's what it was for the first couple of years in the Ranger Regiment, just being reminded every single day that, like, this is a place where killers go. everybody in this room just about is a hitter. If you're not going to be in this room very long. It is a very hard place to be. It's in an even harder place to stay for any kind of considerable amount of time. So you have to be about your business. You have to be about your craft, and it is not a forgiving place in terms of not bringing it every single day to compete. It's all about compete. And what are you bringing to the team? Not yesterday, but like right now and tomorrow.
Yeah. I think that's, very common when you hear from folks like, Brett Johnson. I grew up in the Rangers with Brett Johnson in 175. And, you hear him and Donnie and those guys talk about it a lot. And it's like, I think a lot of people go, it's very competitive. And every day you got to bring it. But when you start getting into your third, your fourth, your fifth year, of being around that, you gain a level of confidence, one, but then you also, things start to kind of creep in your mind. You're like, how much longer can you keep up that pace? How much longer can you, what other techniques, do you need to incorporate into your life? Right. What was some of those techniques, like whether it was Ranger School or whether it was, how about Ranger School and some Ranger School failures that reminds you like, hey, I've got to now incorporate some new techniques in order to kind of make it through the next group of things?
Ranger School as an example. Okay. All right. So when you want to talk about getting humbled, I didn't make it through Ranger School my first shot, right? So I went to Ranger School in the summer of 2011, went through pre-Ranger CERT, small unit Ranger tactics, didn't have really any issues there, learned, did all the standards, everything else like that. And then I went on to Ranger School. Well, in RAP week, right off the bat, I failed land nav, right? So I'm like, oh, shit. I thought that like my skills were better, but, I was lacking in some areas there in those 10 level skills when it came to route planning, when it came to, the proper use of attack points versus trying to dead reckon. I learned some hard lessons on that land nav course. So I failed that and I wind up getting kicked back to CERT, right? So I get kicked back to CERT, go through CERT again, because, you definitely don't want to go back to the company, right? Yeah. I go the second time, I pass land nav this time. I'm like, yay. And we're running back from land nav to the Malvesti spot, Mm-hmm. And literally I get a calf cramp while running back, right? So I get this calf cramp and I'm kind of hobbling towards the back a little bit, trying to stretch it out. And we get back over there and an RI comes over and he's like, what's up with you, Ranger? I'm like, I just, I've got a little cramp in my leg right now. It's hard, no big deal. He was like, okay, hey, go see the medic over there really quick. So dumb me walks over to the medic and he's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I got a calf cramp going on right now. And he's like, all right, sit down. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then they're driving me back to camp. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what's happening right now? They're like, well, you're going to the TMC. I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. They're like, no, you're going to go to the TMC. They take me to the TMC and I get fucking dropped from Ranger School as a hot weather injury. Because what I know now, those classes are picking up with 500 plus. We know the math of what they can actually support at Darby. So they're looking for any reason, and especially in those days, we're looking for any reason to can your ass, right? So because they're trying to cut down to that number. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God, what just happened, right? I'm like beside myself. I couldn't believe it. So I get dropped out of Ranger School as a hot weather injury. And I wind up back at Charlie Company 375 that same day. Not on a gurney, not with IVs coming out of me, not whatever. And they're like, what happened to you? And I tell them, like, I got med dropped. And they're like, what do you mean? You look fine. And I'm like, let me explain. There, and it's like,
there's no explanation.
It was like a pack of wolves, man. Like, it was great, got all on me, right? Running around with my camelback now tied down to me, drinking on, time hacks. And like, I went from the guy in the company as a senior private that they were all really excited about to feeling like a draft bust. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how it felt. I went from like number one to number last, right? Number one to number done, right? It was everybody jumped me in the pecking order at that point in time. And these were guys that came in a few months behind me, some of them several months behind me, who I had taught, how to do their jobs. I taught them the ropes in a lot of ways. I was the senior private. I was giving classes. I was expected to be, I was a private gun team leader in that platoon at the time, right? And in those days, right, it wasn't like the express lane, just send everybody to Ranger school. You had to do a training cycle and a deployment and cut your teeth and pay your dues before you went, right? So, I felt like I let myself down. I felt like I let everybody down, right? And it was really tough. But I had a conversation with the first sergeant there. Brian Strait was the first sergeant at the time at Charlie Company 375. Great dude, outstanding NCO. Absolutely, like, so admire him so much as a first sergeant. Anybody who knows him would know that this prospect would be terrifying. I got to go talk to him. I got to go into his office and talk to him about like what happened, right? So I sit down. I am like expecting to get absolutely nuked through the wall because like all day long, everybody else has been, taking their shots as they should, right? And I go in there and he was like, all right, Meegan. Well, he used to call me Meat, actually. All right, fucking Meat. What happened? What happened, Meat? I'm like, well, this is what happened, First Sergeant. And he's like, they dropped you for that? I'm like, yes, First Sergeant. He's like, they're so, he said some things I'm not going to just say over the podcast, but he's like, well, all right, I'll make you a deal. Can't send you back this summer, but we'll send you back in the winter because, you're hot weather injury, so you'll go back in the winter. And he's like, but here's the deal. You better pass. If you don't pass, I'm going to send your ass to Korea. And I was like, okay. He's like, sounds fair. I was like, fair enough. First Sergeant, appreciate you. So I go back and I reattack school that September. And luckily for me, at that time, again, the third time through CERT, I had enough knowledge and ability by then to go into Ranger school and wound up, just learning from all the lessons before. And was able to bring a lot to the team there in Ranger school and be a good teammate and be knowledgeable and like do all those things to where I appeared really high. I was perfect on patrols. I pissed some RIs off while I was there, but otherwise I was good and wound up being the Sergeant Major Mike Kelso enlisted awardee and going straight through. So it worked out for me in the end. But that was one of the most humbling experiences for me, right? Where you're riding high, you're expecting to go crush this thing, and then it absolutely just chews you and spits you out the other direction.
Yeah. And so, you're learning some of those things now, and I'm sure like you become E4, E5, like team leader, you're getting ready to be a squad leader. When did you go to, over to pre-ranger and start, grooming the new folks for CERT yourself and getting them ready for Ranger school?
Yeah, so I headed over to CERT late 2015, early 2016 after that rotation. I had Pen 6 at that time and just had gotten back. And my wife and I decided we wanted to kind of start a family and settle down a little bit. She had been with me for 4 rotations, I think, at that point in time. So it was, it was a lot to ask of her. And so she was asking for some time. So we went over to CERT, a small unit Ranger Tactics, there, the 75th Pre-Ranger program. And, that was a great experience too. Going over there, we had an opportunity to take a program that was doing all right to doing, like elite level work. And I think that it spoke volumes to the team over there that was able to come together. A lot of former Charlie Company 375 guys were over there. A good nucleus of them came, and we saw things kind of the same way. And there were great dudes from 175 and 275 too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not taking anything away from those guys either, but it was a good team that was like-minded in a single goal, which we went from just being transactional. Like, I'm going to give you this information. You're either going to be successful or not after these 3 weeks. Let's go on to Ranger school, to the guiding star, the North Star, really, that was incorporated by the NCOIC at the time, who was Master Sergeant retired Ray Perez. He was my platoon sergeant as well, and a squad leader when I first got to 3 Charlie. So we worked together for a very long time. And he came over and really wanted to implement change there. And it was the student first mentality. That was the guiding star for everything else. It simplified everything down to student first. What does that really mean, right? Because it sounds simple. It sounds, and it is, like the concept is simple, but the implied tasks of what it really means when you say that you want a POI to be student first. I mean, what do you think about, right? What is it that you think about when you hear something's going to be student first? Like, some of those implied tasks would be, okay, well, if we're going to put our students first, then we need to make sure that the product we're presenting is top notch. Okay, so how do we present a top notch product? Well, we rehearse it. We know the subject material in and out. If we don't, then the implied task there is now we need to devote time to learning it that way and hold each other accountable for that. Things are efficient. We are punctual. Timelines make sense. We're not using the student body as cheap manual labor because we're running behind time and we need them all to lift this stuff, bring this over there, and cutting into their educational time, right? So what it did was it took the cadre on that team, when we put that student first mindset, to another level of professionalism, another level of preparation, another level of being able to execute as instructors. And so I think one of the best things that you can do when you want to present a very professional product, or even, and applicable to sports, applicable to business, applicable to military applications, obviously, right, is who are you doing this for? Is it students? Is it for the guys? For your Jims and Joes? Whatever it is, if you really truly put them first and understand that you need to be a good steward of that formation or that company or whatever it is, all of those other little implied tasks will start to become very obvious of what it is that you need to do. And you'll build systems and processes that will then, generate that. But that has to be your true guiding star. It can't be lip service. It can't be bullshit. Yeah. It needs to be for real, right? You really do put them first, and the rest begins to take care of itself. And so that's what happened with that team there. We built processes where we were able to rotate through, execution, prep, setup, and we were able to take a 21-day POI and kind of mold it with a battle rhythm across 12 to 15 cadre on teams that would rotate between tasks to make sure that not only was the presentation of material, being executed top notch, but we were already thinking 2 days ahead with what the other teams were doing in planning and prep.
Yeah, I appreciate you going into detail on that, because like a lot of people talk about like some of the basic things, right? Like you need to rehearse or something like that, but then they go out and rehearse all the wrong things, right? So I appreciate how you went into to detail on that. If I'm skipping forward, you feel free to kind of bounce back and forth, to lessons that you might have learned, whether it's at pre-ranger or as a platoon sergeant. But the thing I want to tie together is what you learned at pre-ranger, right, or CERT, and then when you got to Texas A&M, right, and you showed up there, and you're going through kind of what's going on in your head right now, right, which is, how do I show up there and immediately be value added? How do I be a great teammate? Was there what's the tie between what you learned at pre-ranger and what you were just doing to some of the culture and some of what you said I'm going to try to be a part of when I get to Texas A&M?
Yeah, so I think what CERT taught me more than anything else was how to really truly be what is known as that servant leader, right? A lot of people talk about it. A lot of people talk about being a servant leader. Nothing will test you in being a servant leader more than, being responsible and solely responsible for, a platoon of 60 students that are depending on you for their meal, for their troop care, for their education, all of the little things that go into making sure that they're being safe at the same time as providing tough, realistic training. Really caring about, those kids in that capacity, right? Looking at them as a treasured product or a commodity, right? In CERT, you are servicing what will be the future leaders of the Ranger Regiment. We want to make sure that we are assessing and developing the right kinds of guys that are going to go take teams and squads, platoons, companies, battalions in the future, right? We want those kinds of guys, and you have to invest in that. So we're like really being that student leader, and then really drilling down on the details, being obsessed with the details, being obsessive over details. It's very important, especially at the NCO level, because as an NCO, it is my job to know things. It is my job to know my men, weapon, and equipment, what it's capable of, where it is in time and space for accountability, and what is feasible when my officer counterpart comes along and says, I want to do this.
So that was like the first half of the episode that I'm looking forward to wrapping up with Sergeant First Class Mike Meegan. We got through about half of the stuff that we wanted to get through. The next thing, that part 2 that I'm looking to get through is when he heads off to ROTC, heads off to Texas A&M, some of how he built some of the training, some of the culture that comes with that, and what's next for him in his Army life and his career. So I look forward to having that second half of the conversation. If there's anything that those of you that are out there that want me to kind of make sure I ask him those questions and that we get into it during the conversation, reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts, and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.